Welcome back to another episode of the Rankable podcast. I'm your host, Garrett Sussman of iPullRank. And this week I'm stoked. It's like this crossover of content and SEO, integrated marketing. What the heck is that? What do you do when content is your product? I am being joined by Michaela Mendes. She is the Senior Director of Integrated Marketing at General Assembly. Been doing it for 12 years. She does content and SEO roles, loves helping companies kind of define and execute on their content strategies that ultimately impact the bottom line. Thank you so much for joining me, Michaela.
Thank you, Garrett. Really excited to be here.
We're both geeks about this stuff, but you're a music geek as well. Is it true you play like 4 instruments?
I do. That is me. At my heart, I wish I could just go play piano, guitar all day, but sadly, it doesn't make me the same amount of money as it does working in content marketing. So here I
am. Well, I mean, these days you can become a content creator, but what are the other two? It's the didgeridoo, right? No, what are the other 2 instruments you play?
Yeah, I also play bass and drums. So I dabble.
Dude, that's badass. When's your album? What's your first album going to be called?
Oh man, that's a good one. I don't know. I'll have to think about that.
Okay, you're gonna get back to me. We'll stay on the Twitter. That's like my ongoing joke with my wife and I. We'll walk around the house, and someone will say like some clever turn of phrase, and I'll be like, "Well, that's my next album. That's what my next album."
Nice. So. Well, you can name it for me then.
Okay, I'll work on. I'll start analyzing your tweets and all that jazz. So I'm just curious. How did you get into content and SEO in the first place?
Well, music is a good segue because I was a music teacher. I taught private lessons in high school and in college, and it's how I paid my rent. It was the thing that I did. I had probably 20 to 30 students a week, and I transferred schools, and I moved to Delaware from Massachusetts, and I was like, how am I going to get more students? So I built a website. And I started to try to market myself in the local area, and it started working, right? And I was like, wow, this is interesting. So I would, on the side, fiddle around with the website, try to see if I could get it to rank. That website is since long gone, but I was trying to rank for, music lessons, Delaware, right? So it was interesting. And I'm like, wow, this is kind of fun. I like it. At the same time, I was going to school. I got an English degree. I changed my major like 5 times, had no clue really what I wanted to do. But started freelance writing. Back in the day, Upwork, it was called Elance at the time. Mm-hmm. So I was one of my first jobs. I was doing it while I was still in school. It was just writing content for what I now know was a content farm, probably making like 1 or 2 cents a word, writing like makeup reviews. But, back in 2010, you could do that, right? It was commonly done. So that was how I first realized like, wow, like this is interesting. I'm writing content, trying to get other people's websites to rank. This is fun. I like this. And, I'm kind of using my degree in a way, right? So it was eye-opening to me. From there, I started to get clients. So I worked as a freelancer, a contractor for different SEO and marketing agencies. There, I learned even more about SEO and content marketing. A few years later, I went in-house at a health tech startup as a content marketing manager. It was great. Startups, man, you learn so much about all types of marketing, right? Because you're with a small team, you're doing a lot. So I learned a lot there. I moved on. I was a content director at an HR tech startup, and now I'm here at General Assembly, leading the integrated marketing team.
That's so interesting. I mean, you basically have written content for everyone and everything out there to kind of like hone that craft. What I'm curious about, and to your point, it's like content evolved. What worked in 2010 is different than what's working today. And I'm sure there are a lot of like mom and pops out there that would appreciate your skill set just from, ever since COVID, where, people weren't going to businesses and everything was virtual. It's like, you need to have a digital presence. But now you recently started doing integrated marketing. Can you define what that is? Is that one of those things where it's like life cycle marketing or demand gen marketing where everyone has a different definition, or do you feel like this is integrated marketing? What is it?
Yeah. So to me, I guess the short answer to that is one story, many channels. That's integrated marketing to me. I think integrated marketing, it's a constant balance between finding the right audience, meeting them where they're at, and then establishing a really strong brand position and voice, and then tying a string from your position to that person, that individual, or that audience group. And no great marketing happens in a vacuum or on just one channel, right? You need many channels these days in order to make sure that that message comes through strong to the right audience at the right time. So I see integrated marketing more as a continuous practice. There's really, to me, there's like 4 steps to it. It's customer first. So finding that best fit customer. Second is channel, right? So where is that customer? Then it's concept. What are we saying? And then it's communication. So how are we saying it? And how are we positioning our brand or our product in the mind of that customer? And so along the way, I think, there's different things that you can do that are specific to every single channel, but starting first with that customer defines the rest of the steps along the way. Each step kind of feeds into the next.
It's really fascinating, and in some ways, you're almost like you're running an orchestra, right? Like where you have all these different channels, which have to kind of work in concert. And there's a lot of strategy that goes into it. To what extent is your role planning versus execution at this point? Like, how are you kind of aligning all the different channels and all the different people at your org who are ultimately putting the message out there for these different target audiences?
Yeah, it's a lot of both. So the way my team is structured is really there's 3 core pillars. So one of them is content and SEO. And SEO is a super important channel for us. The next is social and community. And then the third pillar is conversion, right? So how are we capturing high intent leads and then nurturing them through that funnel on both B2B and B2C side? And then it's about how do we take that playbook and apply it to specific markets? Because whenever you're working in a global company, there's always the element of like what works here, it might not work over there. But having that strong foundation in each of those pillars helps to kind of build that playbook for every single market. And I would say it's a lot. Planning is important. It's probably the most important thing. What we try to do is say, okay, this quarter or this half of the year, here's the high level message that we want to bring to market. Here is where we're seeing, some interest, like here are the wins from the last quarter. And here's how we want to build on that in the future. Right. And then you break that down into each of those pillars, and then you figure out like what's working on social, like what are the best performing messages that we're putting out there. Is it the same as on content and SEO? And then is that translating through to conversion? And how are we, if not, like what can we do differently the next time? And it's definitely probably one of the hardest things to coordinate that, especially across an organization when things are always changing. I think if the pandemic taught us anything, right, it's like, you really do have to be ready, and you have to know what is staying, what will always stay in terms of your brand positioning. And then like, what do you need to be flexible on, and what do you have to kind of expect to change or pivot, and as things move in the market.
It's so fascinating. And to your point, it's like with the pandemic, user behavior has obviously changed dramatically, which changes how you approach everything in all these different channels. To what extent does your role touch SEO? Like, are the other channels informing your SEO strategy? and in terms of what's working, or is SEO the driver, or is it really like holistic and you're just kind of hoping the messaging works across channels?
Yeah. So again, I think coming back to that framework of, customer first, channel second, the channel really dictates the third step, which is the concept and what you're talking about, right? Because I'll give you an example. We've recently launched on TikTok, right? That's been an exciting journey. We did it. And we're doing good. We're seeing traction there.
Cool.
But what we talk about on the blog the concept might be the same as what we talk about on TikTok, but we approach it completely differently. So an example is we recently had a blog take off, and it's all about nurses who maybe want to transition and have a tech career, right? So we, looked at the SEO keyword data. It was like, yeah, there's demand for this. We created the content. It's ranking, it's bringing in people. They're signing up for our email newsletter, right? That's awesome. However, it's a very intensive, long blog, right? It's lengthy. It goes in depth. That same thing is not going to work on TikTok. I know that. However, the concept is, right? So 3 tips for nurses who are ready to change their career. That can be a quick hit TikTok video, right? That's the same concept, but a totally different packaging. And I do think that once you see that one concept is taking off on one specific channel, we're calling it our zero waste content planning. So, let's not waste that, right? Like, let's take that and let's use those learnings and use that same concept and bring it to another channel, but keep the customer and that channel and what you know about that in mind when you bring that concept to the channel. Because it really does change. Like, the way that people want to consume information is vastly different across every channel. It doesn't mean you have to do a completely different topic, but you need to come at it from a different direction.
That kind of speaks. I was going to ask about how you approach building your content strategies between these social channels versus SEO and content in general. To what extent, with that kind of zero waste perspective, are you literally maybe not reusing the exact same content because it's channel specific, but do you find yourself using more video in your kind of SEO driven content strategy because that's the direction that Google's going, and then trying to leverage what you're doing for TikTok? How are you trying to maximize resources across the different strategies?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think it's, what can stay the same and then what needs to change, right? Sometimes, creating something completely net new actually takes less time than trying to say, oh, let's, just completely repurpose this for another channel. I think, the biggest thing is it always comes back to what is the core idea that you're trying to bring to that channel, and what do you want people to do next, right? It's not just about giving them information. It's about inspiring them to action or to further research, right? So yeah, I think, repurposing across each channel and making each channel, better because of what you learn on other channels is important. The one thing I will say about, when we talk about content strategy in general versus just SEO strategy, to me, content strategy is a direct reflection of the business strategy, right? So how do we make money as a business? Who buys it, right? Whose money is it? Is it this B2B buying team, or is it one consumer, right? That vastly changes your content strategy, right? Because it's all about that audience and that customer. From an SEO perspective, content strategy, you're honing in on that audience. From an SEO strategy perspective, to me, it's honing in on an audience within a channel, right? Because SEO is just one potential channel and one way to get to that person. And that SEO strategy might encompass a lot more that the overarching content strategy doesn't, like the technical side, the user experience, all of that. So I do see a distinction there, but I think they feed each other. I think where you go wrong is when you say your SEO strategy is your content strategy, right? Because to me, it's not. An SEO strategy is just specific to that channel. And I see people say, okay, well, here's a list of keywords. This is now our content strategy. And it's like, no, it's not, right? Content strategy is at like the brand level. It's about like your positioning. It's about, again, how that business makes money, right? And SEO strategy, I think, it should also directly reflect that, but there's just a difference there, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's like not like the Venn diagram, but when, I guess it's like a rectangle is a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a square sort of thing, where the type of content, fits within the certain channel, but the certain channel doesn't apply to all the different content. Specifically, I'm curious because your product is content in to a certain degree. What's unique about that when it comes to how that influences your SEO strategy when you're marketing content?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think, content in general, I think, like I said, back in 2010, the way that companies approached content marketing just had a lot less nuance, because all you really needed to do was check the box and do it, and you could get things ranking. So I think, as content becomes more commoditized, and there's just so much of it, the bar just continues to get higher, right? And if you think about, like, if I were going to like launch a new product to market, right? There's no way that I'm going to be able to launch a product that does the same thing as another product, has all the same messaging, and delivers the same value props, and have that be competitive, because it's just the same. It looks and feels the same as everything else. And I think, treating content like a product, like, why would I go and bring content to market if it looks and feels and like reads the same as every other piece of content out there? I think, you need to tie it back to what is unique about our brand, what is unique about what we do, and you need to do something different, right? I think it's a little bit of when, all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Yeah. It's not, like, more isn't always the answer. And I think it's finding those differentiating factors, and either packaging them in a new way, delivering them in a different type of user experience, being the first to get to a specific channel. Like, there's lots of different ways that you can differentiate, but I think, like, with content as the product, like, you need to have a higher bar for how you reach people.
Yeah, and that very much goes back to what you were saying about tying everything back to revenue, obviously, when, ultimately you're trying to, the whole purpose of all of this is to increase customers and growth, and especially in the communities that you're building. What is your kind of perspective when it comes to gating content, especially when content is the product, versus leveraging content to generate growth? Like, how do you approach that line from a business standpoint?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's a lot of, I guess, extreme points of view here, right? There's gate everything or gate nothing, give it all away. I think it's important to remember that we do want our content to inspire some sort of next step, right? But we should always operate in service of that customer. So to me, I think there's nothing better than transparency in the way that you do your marketing, right? So if someone comes in, I'm gating a checklist and, they want it, I'm going to say, hey, like, give me your email. I'm going to give you this checklist, and I'm going to actually give you a useful follow-up sequence that does not involve dumping you to talk to an SDR right away, right? So, like, just being like treating customers the way you would want to be treated, I think it's underrated, right? Like, just follow the golden rule. There's no like set rule that, oh, only gate 20% of your content and that's the best. No, it depends on that user and like the journey that you're creating for them. If it's time to gate something so that you can start to have more of that one-on-one email nurture relationship with them, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Right. And I think, in reality, that's how you tie content back to revenue. So we still have to gate. Like I'm so pro like give as much value as possible up front. But at the end of the day, like the business does need to make money, and content is a way to nurture and move them along that journey. So whatever you need to do in order to make that happen in service of that user and getting them to the solution that your product provides, I think that's the right thing to do.
I'm curious because you mentioned the three pillars in terms of the integrated marketing. Where does email as a channel fit within that? Is it on the content? Is it on the conversion? Is it under both?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it overlaps both. I work very closely with our head of performance marketing, and technically email sits under him. However, we're using email in content and SEO, and we're using it on the conversion side, right? And like, how are we, nurturing people? And all of our content, we're always considering like, where does this fit in existing email nurtures, or how do we optimize email nurture in order to help people move to that next step? So email is a unique channel, I think, in that it spans like almost the entire user journey. So
yeah, it's so important. And finally, I guess bringing it back to SEO, what SEO advice do you have for kind of other medias or publishers where content is the product? Obviously, you can't give away your trade secrets, but just at a high level, what are some of the recommendations you have for someone who's really trying to build growth organically?
Yeah, I would say like reject the idea that you have to do something just because it's worked in the past. Because, what I'm seeing more and more is companies that are really standing out, and specifically in SEO, like generating backlinks naturally, they're doing things a little bit different. They're not doing, 20 long form blog posts a month. They're doing like a cool calculator. They're doing like a finder tool. They're giving simple answers to questions and it's not like a long piece, right? So I think it's just to accept that like we're in a new era where you don't necessarily have to hit a word count. You don't have to hit a number of URLs published. What you do need to do is stand out. And again, I think from an SEO perspective, there's like the standard playbook that lots of people follow, and that's great, and that can get you far. But like, what will get you to a higher level is doing things a little bit differently and just growing that toolbox that you have. So
I love that. It brings it full circle to the brand differentiator is what is the future going forward. I'm going to throw one more question at you because I'm curious your opinion is, do you think Google rewards differentiation at this point, or are we still not there yet? Like personally, how do you feel about not doing the 10 listicles, and will you, ultimately reap the benefits of being different?
Yeah. Well, I think it still works. That's the thing. I don't think it's not a binary, like,
Fair.
Don't do this because it won't work. I feel like that's, that it's too nuanced for that. Right. I think Google is trying to deliver more high quality search results. I think like if you look at like the past few updates, I think the intention is there. I'm not sure if we're yet there in the actual delivery of that. I've seen mixed results. That doesn't mean, you shouldn't still do like the 10 things to know about whatever, because honestly, that works on other channels. Like I think sometimes we get hung up on like, oh, we're just creating this piece for SEO, but in reality, that could be a great thing to add to your email nurture. Create it anyway. And maybe email traffic is the number one metric you want to look at for that piece, right? So I don't know. The answer is, if you're asking me to predict what Google is going to do next, I cannot tell you. However, I do think that building a brand, it helps you rise above Google. Like, you're no longer confined to just depending on Google, because, the average consumer is smart. They know, like, what the real intention is. You're not fooling anybody, and so creating an experience where you're really trying to help them find what they're looking for, I think that is always going to trump everything.
And that's why I love the whole philosophy that you guys have, which is like customer centric. That's where everything starts, is with the customer. It's smart, and Google will get there, even if they're not there right now. They're trying to be customer centric as well. Michaela, it is so fun to talk to you. I really am glad that you're coming on and telling us all about your experience. Are you ready for some rapid fire rankings?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's cue the music. We're going to do this up. Starting off right off the bat, rank your top 3 of just something you love. What do you love the most? Number top 3, go.
All right. I would say I'm doing content and SEO a lot of my life, but when I'm not, the top 3 things that I love to do, I love every single Friday, I do a family movie night with my husband and my daughters, and it's like the highlight of my week. We've gone back, we've watched all the 90s family movies, fun. And then I love to hike, big hiker, and of course I love playing music. So
I love it. Okay, and I'm gonna get some movie recommendations for you for family time. Anyway, rank your best SEO marketing win.
My last company, we were at 8,000 organics a month. We went to 200,000, and that was huge for me. That was the first time I executed a content strategy, and led the charge, and we saw some great results and good conversions, and it was a big win.
That's the key, the conversion. That's amazing. Okay, rank your top 3 SEO tools.
Ahrefs, Screaming Frog, and a new one I'm using called Phrase.
Ooh, love Phrase. That's great for content creation. Okay, rank your best SEO trick or tactic.
I think just internal linking. To me, it's all about internal links. I think underrated because, we talk about backlinks all the time, but I think internal linking is still like one of the best ways to really like boost new pages that you want to rank.
It works. Rank what you love most about SEO.
I love the fact that SEO, it's a little analytical, it's a little creative. I can, if I'm feeling creative, I can be creative. If I'm feeling more analytical, I can be more analytical. It's something for every mood.
I am 100% with you. It's why I love it as well. Rank your best learning SEO resource.
LearningSEO.io by Aleda Solis. It's one of the best resources I've ever found.
It's so incredible. The past 2 years of her just building piece by piece. It's so good.
Yep.
Rank the top 1 to 3 SEOs or marketers that you most look up to.
Well, Aleda, for sure. I get her newsletter and read it every week. Another SEO that I followed for a while, Kevin Indig, his blog, I've learned a lot from him. And then I've absolutely loved following Amanda Natividad, marketer, on Twitter the past year or so. She's blown up and become Twitter famous because she just provides so much great marketing and content marketing value.
So smart. Tweet. I don't know how you do that well consistently. All 3 of those people are incredible. Yeah. Finally, rank your number 1 cause or charity that you want to promote.
Well, you had Chima Meje on the podcast before, and I just love what she's doing with Freelance Coalition. I think, it's such a great cause, just helping, people from underserved countries to get into SEO. I think that's so needed. So I follow her on Twitter as well, and she's just a source of inspiration for me. So
That's a great one. And definitely they need sponsorship and money to continue to do all the great events that Chima's been putting together. She is unbelievable. Michaela, you are great. If people want to get in touch with you and find you online, where's the best way?
Yeah. So I recently started to try be more active on LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn. And then I'm on Twitter, most of the time. So at M Mendes writes on Twitter.
Amazing. We'll have the link in the show note descriptions. Thank you so much for being my guest. This was so much fun.
Yeah. Thank you, Garrett.
Absolutely. My name is Garrett Sussman of iPullRank. This has been Rankable. We will catch you next week. Signing off.